Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Caines, and Ed Mann.
Good afternoon, evening, and welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe. We are three of us today. Michael's unfortunately not with us, but going from left to right, we have Ed Mann.
Hello.
And we have Lewis Caines.
Good evening.
And I
How
am.
do you know we're left to right? Where we're not on video.
I was thinking, like,
I've still got pictures of you, so I can see Ed with his cool little sunglasses on, and you next to that massive, scary-looking chicken.
That's a brilliant picture.
You can just explain that picture, and maybe we'll put it in the show notes. What is this picture about?
That picture, I went to a wedding at Bristol Zoo 2 years ago.
Yeah.
This was a picture or a board that was on as you walk around the zoo, and it had the big, weird-looking, gormless bird on it, and it looked like an intellectual equal. So I'd have my photo taken next to it and see who looked more intelligent.
It looks like quite the intimidating little thing. I'd be quite scared if I saw one of those in the wild, I think.
Yeah, I can't even remember what it's called now, but it's it captured the moment perfectly. It's a good picture, that.
Excellent stuff. So anyway, we should probably say how have people's weeks been going. So we'll start. You're already talking, Lewis, so we'll start with you. How's your week been?
I'm rambling, so I may as well ramble.
yeah,
keep on the rambling, sir.
Keep going.
Yeah, not too bad. I don't have a massive amount to ramble about. Things are still really quiet at work, so I'm just kind of poodling along doing my own thing.
So you're getting loads of time to do loads of learning and stuff in between actual work and all that at the moment?
Some and some. I'm doing some tutorials, but I'm headlong into converting a load of the stuff I've done over to Laravel, so that's taken up.
How's that going?
Yeah.
It's not going too bad. I'm in the process of rewriting my CMS that I made, and rather than trying to make a really clever, dynamic thing like I did in the first place, I'm just dumbing it down a bit so it's a bit easier for other people to work with.
And you're going to be open sourcing that? Any chance of that getting out into the wild once you've finished?
Possibly eventually. It's going to be more of an API, I think, which is I think it's an easier way to work with it. So I can just call whatever I want whenever I need it, and so hopefully it will be one day. It's not too bad.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Actually, it'll be really good.
I know. I keep talking about one of these days I'll release some open source code, and I'm sure I will.
It's like the new Duke Nukem, when that came out. People are waiting for it, Lou. People are waiting for it.
The masses demand it, so yeah.
People are going to be getting angry like those gamers were.
They were, yeah. But no, other than that, no, still pretty quiet on the work front, but keeping.
How is the Laravel 5 stuff? Like, are you enjoying it still? You still loving it?
Yes, I am very much so. I think it's a great framework, and to be honest, I'm rewriting a lot of the old CMS stuff that I did, but I'm getting stuff done so quickly, just particularly because of just how good Eloquent is. Really, it's just really, really.
You love that active record stuff, eh?
I kind of do at the moment. I know you're not so mad keen about it.
It's balancing out though. I mean, if it solves the problem that you're trying to solve now, and like it helps you out. I mean, this is the thing, and with the CMS and stuff, like you say, like you're very tied to the tables that you're using, and
part of the trap that I've fallen into is that when you're working on your own, you kind of just write stuff a system that because you're never going to have to show it to anyone. But I then realise that's for a long-term situation going forward, probably not ideal. I'd rather, because we all know how frustrating it is to try and pick up something that someone else has made, and you just want to be able to understand it straight away. So I'm trying to rewrite it and with that in mind, so that if someone picks it up from me one day, maybe it'll be a bit easier to work with than maybe it was before. And particularly
so are you documenting it all as well, or not?
The code is the documentation. Go on, Lou, say it. The code is the documentation.
Thank you so much for that question.
It's written so well it documents itself. Is that
exactly.
Is that what you're going to say?
Self-documenting. That's what Uncle Bob says.
I also like to think that my audience has a certain psychic element, so they kind of
they know what you thought at that time. They understand what I means and C, and
We've been making this podcast for 18 months, so they must know how I think by now.
Exactly, yeah. They are part of you. You've got one with the audience.
At one. Zen? Oh, no, that's a different framework.
Zen.
Oh, yeah, they might be Zen as well,
You never know.
They could be that way inclined. And Ed, how about you? Have you had an interesting week? When was it last recorded? It wasn't last weekend, was it? It was a weekend before.
Yeah.
So it's been a couple of weeks, yeah. And I've not been around for about a month on the podcast, I think.
But, the update from you, man. So, my week's been Mine's been good. Yeah, I've been working primarily on, well, actually really interesting stuff, actually, some caching and performance stuff this week. And I've got quite a lot of like interesting things to talk about. So yeah, other than that, like it's been caching and stuff, getting ready for the holiday, going off to America next week, which is very
so
nice.
jealous of that, man.
Going to be awesome. Really can do with 2 weeks off, so I'm really going to make the most of it. And yeah, it's been really chill. Like, I mean, today the sun seems to, be pretty amazing. So we've been outside having a barbecue.
Yeah, because just before we started recording, you and Amy were showing us some sunburn that you've got today, and I've got a little bit of sunburn today as well. So it's the first day of summer, pretty much.
This is us, the UK.
You guys live in a different country than I do.
What? Is it not sunny where you are?
I've been playing golf today in what felt like a Force 8 hurricane.
Oh, it's been super windy, but it's been the sun has been beaten down. Yeah.
What time were you doing golf today?
7:30 this morning.
Yeah, that's why, because the sun hasn't come up yet.
Exactly. 7. We ended up getting like a cheap, like £2, it's like portable, but not portable, but they're disposable barbecues.
Yeah, they're great. They are.
They are great, amazing. And we're like,
wait. So
hang on,
we were at your house last weekend, and you
days,
just bought a brand new massive barbecue, and you just spent £2 on a throwaway barbecue.
Yeah. It's a case of the CBAs. It happens to a lot of people, and it's a massive disease. CBAs
can't be asked.
Can't be asked. Yeah.
Oh, the cleaning.
The cleaning of that, yeah. I mean, it is a bit of a pain, but also it's just the fact of like a disposable barbecue.
You can light a bit of paper, can't you? And it sets yourself off.
But it turns out that they say, you read the packaging, and on the back you're like, okay, so it says, put this on, a non-flammable surface, i.e. a brick. And we're like, oh, we've got a slab, like there's this slab that's left over from, we're renting this place and it's there. We put it on that. We put it on our nice plastic table.
No.
Well, no, we leave it, we let it do its thing. And Adam, my housemate, looks at it afterwards and goes, Ed, it's cracked the slab. And I'm like, how? And then you look at it and it's actually burnt through, like it's melted the actual plastic as well.
Wow,
so slab's not good enough. And yeah, so that was interesting.
It heats up quite well though, doesn't it?
Well, it's pretty impressive though. I thought a brick was what you should do. I thought that's what they say to do. I mean, maybe one wasn't good enough. But it was nice until it did that. So that's my Sunday.
So you've had 2 barbecues in 2 days then?
Yes. Well, I had 2 last weekend, a Saturday and Sunday, and this weekend I've had 2.
We should probably talk about last weekend, shouldn't we, Ed? What happened last weekend?
Well, he can't say much about it because he probably doesn't remember.
I had enough. We haven't seen each other in so long. It had been insane. Like I'm thinking, like Ascot was the last time we actually met up with each other.
I think it was, yeah.
And I was just like, and it was my friend's birthday, and the drinks were flowing, and it was a very nice evening.
It was a very
the tragedy is people don't realise how cool we are.
Oh, we are. And also, it turns out girls don't like Cards Against Humanity.
And they don't like us talking about Uncle Bob books in the afternoon either.
Bob,
they're not too keen on programming talk, are they?
They weren't enjoying it. It was just trying to get, software craftsmanship, the book, trying to pimp it to Fraser, and they were like, why are you talking about this?
They just don't get it.
Oh, it's different worlds.
So sad.
Yeah, they're so sad. I love it. Yeah, no, they're like, they're so sad.
Yeah, it was but I remember, like, we got to the end of the night and everyone had gone to bed and everyone had gone, and then you go to, like, you can barely even talk, and you go to me, do you want to have a JD and Coke? And I'm like, well, not really, but yeah, go on then, let's have a JD and Coke, and we can sit down and have a couple of drinks. And then, like, I remember, like, you and me were both sat there, and then we were both thinking exactly the same thing, like, I just want to go to sleep, and then I can't remember if you suggested it or I suggested it, like, it was, do we actually want to have another drink, or should we just call it a night?
Do you want to have another one?
And then I think we were both like, yeah, let's just call it a night. And then, so I went to sleep on your couch for, I think I got just about drifted off to sleep, and then all of a sudden I heard like heavy footsteps storming across the landing, and you screaming down the toilet, and then Amy going, are you all right, Ed? Are you all right?
And then she comes in and goes, Ed, are you all right? And I can't do this. And she was almost sick on me, so that's how bad it was. Oh dear, yeah. I was being naive.
It's got to be done though. It was good fun. Yeah, thank you for hosting us.
Oh, it was awesome, man. I think people it turns out people don't like on Facebook. So I don't post much on Facebook. I was going to do it all on Twitter. Hashtag Bowser Birthday Bash. Turns out people don't really use Twitter in our circles, like our friends and stuff. So really annoying. I was like, well, you know, you get Twitter, or I guess I have to move to Facebook. And yeah, so we're on Facebook doing all this, and I think I spanned so many people's walls with just us and videos of like, and it's Fraser, he's now turned up, and oh look, it's Lew and Rachel. Yeah, for me it was great. It was a good.
It was good. Yeah, it was very good time.
Then they were like, yeah. Well, they were annoyed after part 1 of Bowser opening his presents because it moved over to Dave, and some of my friends aren't friends with Dave, so they didn't know where was part 2. All I got was like last week. I got, where was part 2? I'm like, part 2 of what? I was like, oh, Adam opened his presents, of course. Oh dear. But yeah, I digress. But it was a really, really awesome time.
It was a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, and this week's been really interesting with like caching stuff and performance, and I'm looking forward to having a little chit chat like us today. So, Fraser, how have you been, sir?
I've been doing all right, thank you. Because it has been a while since I've been on, but I wish I had loads to report, but I've not got anything that kind of stands out. I've been working a lot on this HTML file, this canvas game that we're doing in Fraser, the slot machine game. Been doing a lot of work on that, which has been really, really interesting. Like, Fraser's been an absolute joy to work with, and I pretty much know it inside out now, which is always good. And yeah, we've had the big kind of amount of work that we've been working on is trying to make it scalable for all devices, because obviously it's a slot game that needs to go out through casinos and stuff, and so people are going to be using it on iPads and on iPhones and.
How hard is that? That must be quite a hard feat. Or have you kind of limited it to
surprisingly not that bad? Like we've obviously, but we've got quite a few performance issues because the game's very graphic intensive. So if you think about like
designers,
exactly.
Kind of just a command line face. Just have a CLR and we're all right, you know.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Just like text results, it'll be fine.
Yeah, just text based,
you know. You want to see like this kind of like baking lady making cakes all over the place.
Animation.
Yeah, we don't need that. Yeah, don't need any of that. But yeah, so the big kind of thing was we've got support down to iPhone 4, which is obviously a pretty lame device, but we've got it working pretty nice in the iPhone 4.
I've got one of those.
Have you? But the big issue wasn't the iPhone 4. The big issue was the iPad 3, because the iPad 2 and the iPad 3 are similar. What is? I can't even say the word. Similar area, like you know the word.
Similarities.
Similarly. Yeah. They're similarly powered, anyway. That's the word I was looking for.
How many beers have you had today?
I've only had 2.5, but I'm sunburnt, so that's what it is. Yeah, so they're pretty equal in power.
And
the iPad 2
and you're in Lebanon, by the sound of it.
Is it bad audio quality? Oh, well, the police going past. Yeah.
You've got this is London, my friend.
South East London. Yeah, rough part of town, Greenwich, Royal Greenwich,
Royal Greenwich,
Royal Borough. Yeah, so the iPad 2 and the iPad 3 have got pretty similar specs, but the iPad 3 has to power a Retina screen.
So how is that, by the way? Yeah, sorry, I'll complete.
Yeah, that's our biggest hurdle at the moment, getting it to run smoothly on the iPad 3.
So they literally did, because I know that the 3 was only out for a while, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, and it's a horrible piece of hardware, and I hate it. And
is it really?
Because it's a good piece of hardware, but for what we needed to work nicely on, it's hard.
The 2 was like nicely powered for the display, and then you had the Retina display, but they didn't stop the processor at all enough to.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty bad. No wonder why, because it came out and then it was gone, and you're like, oh, that's weird. Like, you don't normally they have a bit of a shelf life, don't they, for a year or two?
Yeah.
And then so that's why, because they literally just decided we get a Retina display. Crap, we still need to use the same hardware.
Yeah. It's absolutely brutal, and so I've kind of written this. It's just a really simple function, like a golden ratio function. So we're using a responsive asset server, which is something that the back end guys in house develop. So we can request assets in any size essentially. So to do that, we need to know the original size of the image. So we're basing it off like a 2048 by 15, whatever the thing is, for obviously 2x for Retina.
Yeah.
So we've got a base size on that, and all our images are sized originally for Retina iPad size. So if we're getting assets for a non-Retina device, we know that, so we can request them at half the size, so we don't have to scale them down. So that's fine on the iPad 2, because we request images rather than being like 2048 wide, we request a 1024, and that can work fine. But what we're having to do with the iPad 3 is we're obviously still having to request the 2048 wide images, and then scale those so they look nice on the Retina screen. But that's where we're having the hurdles, because exactly. So it's having to do 4 times as much work on the iPad 3 as it is on the iPad 2, because obviously if you're half half the resolution of an image, you're essentially only taking a quarter of it because you've got half on both dimensions. So if you imagine like a square cut into quarters, you're only getting 1/4 of that as opposed to the whole thing. So it's really causing us issues. So we can.
What's the market share like on an iPad 3? Did you look into that, or do you just know that these are the devices?
To be honest with you,
sometimes you think, is this even worth it? You're like, I know it will bite you in the back, but if it's like, it's one of those things with like IEs and stuff where you're just like, do I need to support IE7 now? Like, can we really cut it out of our like browser support?
Yeah. No, that is the thing, and it would be really interesting to look into. I don't think we're going to get away with kind of saying, look, we'll just sack it off, because it's quite a big client that we're developing this. Well, I say big client, it's not like a client that anybody would have heard of, but in the online gaming industry, it's
cool,
quite a big player. So there's no option at all for us in terms of kind of sacking off iPad 3.
Is it so it's a browser game then, and it's played on what, desktop, mobile, tablet, the whole shebang?
Yes, basically, yeah. So
and this whole code base, this single code base, works on all three of those?
It does indeed, yeah. So that's what we're using the responsive asset server for. So we're requesting assets in whatever size we need them, and we can position them wherever we need them, which is a bit of a pain in the arse, because you can't. It doesn't work like CSS. Like, you can't have breakpoints. So we're having to basically position everything automatically based on the size of the screen that we're given, and that's been causing all kinds of, not issues, but thinking points and hurdles to get over. So it's been a really, really interesting project, but it's kind of, we're getting to the end when we need to be delivering it, so we're pretty much down to just performance things at the moment that we're now tidying up. But it's been a really interesting project. Absolutely loved it, and I'd like to now as well, because I've got my hand into this Phaser thing and I know it pretty well. I'd like to develop like just a mobile game or just something, because it'd be nice to have something in the App Store and to have something like
you can just show it off. You're like, hey guys,
exactly, yeah. Nothing that I can make money off, but it's something that I can say, oh yeah, well this is mine, because I wouldn't charge for it.
Understand? Like my girlfriend, like I spoke to her yesterday. She goes, oh, you should do that in the app, because I was explaining what I've been doing. Like, you should add this to the App Store, and I was like, well, I have made an app. She's like, really? Like an app?
Exactly,
like like the Mazoom thing and etc. And like, yeah.
that wasn't very stressful for you though, was it?
No, of course not. And like the thing is like that type of thing, and like it doesn't really show. But if you give them something really cool or really cheesy and they love it, like people understand that, then it's an app. Not like, oh, but I did this algorithm and it's so cool. Why don't you like this?
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't install it on your iPhone. Yeah.
But one thing I actually was going to say about this app, so you see, because it's like cross-device, cross-platform, everything. I mean, is there a lot of differences that you found, or has Phaser been able to abstract that out, or have you had to like a lot of conditional blocks saying if it's this, do this, if it's that, do that?
We've tried to avoid that as much as possible, but there are certain instances. For instance, trying to get it to work for the iPad 3, I've written it's only a tiny little function, but it checks the frame rate that the game's running at, because the base frame rate is 60 frames a second, so we can detect like if it's starting to struggle and it starts to drop to like 30 or 20 frames a second, then we can say, oh shit, well hang on a second, something's going on here, so ditch the niceties essentially. So the game experience is still there, but it's not as fluid, but it's not as polished and it's not as shiny. You don't get all the bells and whistles that you would do if you were on a more modern device, for instance. So it's things like when you win something, like you'll get like all these particles getting emitted from behind the winning line and all this kind of stuff. So we're basically saying, well, okay, if the frame rate starts to drop, we know this person is not on a device that can handle all this, so we're going to ignore all the particles and
all those. Yeah, just don't worry about that. That is just it's like graceful degradation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, we want you to still be able to have the experience, but not with all the niceties. Which again is really strange that actually the experience on iPad 2 with a worse display is actually better.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's really quite painful.
I'm amazed by Apple there. I really am. Like how they would kind of get away with doing that. Yeah. Like, and I know. Because they invest a lot of time into each device that they actually make. Yeah. To be like, that's going to be a long stay, and Oh, and this is the annoying thing. Again, it's like with browser support, we end up being the ones that kind of bite it because we have to support it.
Yeah.
They go, oh, you have to buy the next one. It's like, well, it's great for you to say that, but our client doesn't think that. They're using an iPad 3, and that's what they want us to support. So we have to now deal with this. So it's one of those things. And I mean, another thing actually. So does Phaser then deal with the whole frames per second stuff, or do you have to?
What do you mean? Like, does it deal with it? Does it kind of alert you when the frames per second drop?
Yeah. Does it kind of provide you with all the abstractions and stuff to like listen on those things and say?
Yeah. Yeah, which is really good. Yeah.
And also another thing. Sorry about this.
Go ahead.
is the JavaScript stuff. So, are you using any preprocessors? Any like transpilers, like like converting it into like from CoffeeScript into JavaScript?
No, nothing at all. Just writing pure JavaScript. To be honest, I've kind of thought about maybe dabbling with CoffeeScript, but I think it's just another layer that's not necessary. To be honest with you.
Well, I mean,
maybe that's an ignorant point of view because I've not.
No. I think. No, I mean, this is the funny thing where I was doing some ES6 stuff last week. I was talking about it where,
yes.
The niceties you get in ES6 are pretty substantial, and a lot of people have gone from CoffeeScript to ES6, and it's just one of the things where maybe even just adding a transpiler to ES6 in your stack, like Babel or like Traceuer or something, is the Google's one, and using that, and just like for now you can use the niceties of ES6, but it actually converts it into ES5 support.
Okay.
I would honestly, if I was you, look at that.
That's
more
quite
so,
cool, yeah.
because that's stuff that you're going to get. Like this, they only support the standards. Well, they support niceties that may not be in the standard, but the standard stuff of like arrow syntax, arrow functions, and splat and rest. Well, rest and spread and all these cool things. Supports those, goes into ES5. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And you get all those niceties. And I've wrote some of the code I've been able to write just using those instead of using basic JavaScript is pretty crazy.
Is it really? I might have to check it out.
It's so nice, man. And you know that this is like stuff that's not just like a voodoo, scripting kind of overhead. It's real. This is what JavaScript's going to be like in a couple of years. Hopefully, the browsers start supporting it all the time, which is beneficial because then you're like learning something that you can actually remember and keep. Because I think that's the other thing with these transpilers and stuff like CoffeeScript and like TypeScript and PureScript is that they're great and they're great experimental things. But when people invest a lot of money into them, because a lot of people have had this whole time where they were like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch all my code base to CoffeeScript, and Hack and Use, you've seen the blog post of, why I switched all my, all our code base. We've got like 20,000 developers, and we spread this off to CoffeeScript. And then they're like a year later, why we changed back from to JavaScript from CoffeeScript? And you realise it's just like the commitment is crazy. The only thing you can rely on is the raw language. JavaScript is going to be around. Whether you convert down to it or not, it's going to be around. It's like CSS. It's Sass and Less and Starless and all these things are great. And jQuery even, like people say they know jQuery, but then they don't know JavaScript. JavaScript is the one thing that's going to rely on, and that's when like ES6 comes along. Learn those things, and then build on them if you want to. Have those
absolutely. And you can even in terms of like if you are an employer, and then you make the decision, say, okay, we're going to convert everything to CoffeeScript. It's like, okay, well you've just quartered or fifth or sixth or seventh like your potential pool of developers, and it's hard enough to find developers as it is. So you're shooting yourself in the foot, I reckon.
Absolutely. And ES6 is amazing. There's the stuff that, and some of the implementation was some of that, the actual, so like you've got the syntactic stuff, but also some of the performance stuff, tail recursion, which is really cool, which is a very fun thing. They're supporting that now. And I love it. And JSBin, I can't pin that enough. How awesome.
It's really cool, isn't it?
So good. And the way he's got all these preprocessors, transpilers in there already. It's so cool that he's like, I want 6 to 5, which is Babel now, and it's like, I can use that, and I can just use all of the cool ES6 stuff without, pretending my browser can support that without having to worry about it. And can't get enough of it, man.
Fantastic. That's really cool. And did I tell you as well, I've been dabbling a little bit with 3.js.
Oh, how is that going?
I've not spent as much time as I wanted to, because my plan was to spend a couple of weekends ago. I was like, okay, well, I'll cut off the whole afternoon. I'll spend like 5 hours like going through tutorials and stuff. There's not a lot of information out, or kind of decent information out there about it. So
you've got to write it, dude. This is it.
I know, but I toyed around for maybe a couple of hours, and I made like a cube appear and like lights and all this kind of stuff. Because I've been playing a lot with. I've told you, I've been messing around with Google Cardboard. I say messing around with, like, not as a developer, purely as a consumer, and it's the coolest thing ever. Yeah. I think it's so.
I know you sent it to me. I still need like the pitch. Like, what is it?
It's basically amazing. Like you've heard of what's the game thing? Jeez, I can't even think. Anyway, it's a 3D headset essentially for your smartphone. So it's I bought a cheap one from China. It was like £3, and it took 2 weeks to get here, but it's absolutely worth £3.
So you put your phone in it?
Yeah. So you get like this little cardboard kit, and it comes with all pre-cut out, and it's basically you fold it up, put the 2 lenses in, and you've got a magnet as well. So you put the lenses in, and then the magnet goes on the side, and what the magnet's for is so you've got some kind of interaction with the phone, because it messes with your compass. So the games or the apps have been developed to kind of recognise when the polarity of the is that the right word?
Really?
The polarity changes when you move the magnet, so it kind of registers a click.
So cool.
So you don't have to touch the screen because you don't have any access to the screen.
That's
Oculus Rift is the thing I was thinking of. So it's essentially like a very low budget version of Oculus Rift. So you basically put your phone in the back of this thing, in the back of the Google Cardboard. You've got a couple of lenses so that you can look at it really up close, and there's a divider down the middle. So when you look at an app that's been developed or for Google Card, there's a load of like roller coaster simulations, and I've got pretty much all of them on my phone now. But it's amazing. It's like really, really cool. It's such an immersive experience. And when you think for £3, basically, if anyone out there doesn't have Google Cardboard or an equivalent or whatever, get yourself on Amazon and buy one. It's the greatest £3 or £20 if you buy a plastic one that you'll ever spend. Like it's just awesome. So I've been kind of messing around with 3.js with the intention of making something that I can view on my Google Cardboard, and I haven't got a clue. I need, like, if anyone out there has got any inspiration as to what they'd like to see in 3D or whatever, then
that would be so cool. It would be
phenomenal, because I don't have a creative brain at all. But I want someone to tell me something cool that I can make with this.
You could do, and then you can
and
start.
I will make it, and then I will, whatever.
I'd love to know how to make GPS apps. I'd love to know how that will work.
GPS?
I've got no idea how.
Geolocation?
Yeah.
Oh, you can do it through the browser. Super easy. There's Geo.
Is there?
Yeah.
I never looked at it.
Yeah, there's a Geo API that you can access through modern browsers, and it's just you can get the lat long and.
The scope for cool things you could do with GPS is probably infinite.
Oh, it's super easy. Like you could knock something together in 5 minutes in your browser that will tell you your current lat long, and then obviously to do more interesting stuff, you just do stuff with the location data that you have.
Oh, okay. I might, because from a golf point of view, that GPS is quite cool because you can use it to tell your yardages for your shots and stuff like that. How far?
Oh yes, you could pin down. That would be really, and because with your compass as well, working out that type of information.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and also even like weather data at that time.
Yeah.
From that location, you could say that location, that weather, and I can actually log it.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that within the rules of golf. It's frowned upon.
What? Log in. What weather it was?
Well, using any kind of app that tells you what the current weather or wind speed or wind direction at that.
Well, if you were super cool and you had an Android Wear device, then you could pipe that to your wrist, and you could very sneakily.
Oh, so Fraser, how is the app Android weather?
I thought you'd never ask. I think it's the best thing ever. Like, I wanted, ever since they announced the Moto 360, I always had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to get one. Like, I've not worn a watch for 10 years. That's not the one I've got. I got the Sony Smartwatch 3 because it was the cheapest, and it's the most powerful one, and it's the most waterproof one, and it's got a GPS, but it doesn't have a heart rate monitor. But I'm not bothered about that.
I don't need to know what my heart is.
That's the thing. Apparently they're all inaccurate anyway, so I'm not really worried about that. And I've got a heart rate monitor if I need
it's like
one.
you're dead. I'm not really dead yet.
A Fraser heart rate monitor it has.
Fraser heart rate monitor.
But I was kind of ever since the Moto 360 came along, I was like, I'm kind of a bit intrigued by all this. And then it was like, at the time when it came out, it was 240 quid, so I didn't bother. And then one of the guys at my new job has one, so I was chatting to him, and I was like, I really quite fancy it. I was like, why don't you get one? I was like, well, like if anyone ever releases one that's got GPS and is fully waterproof, then I'll buy one. And then like 2 months later,
you were thinking to yourself, that won't happen.
Exactly, it was a way of discounting myself out of the current generation of them. And then he sent me an IM like 2 minutes later with a link to Amazon. It was like 135 quid to this Sony Smartwatch 3, and I was like, well, I sort of have to now. But it's the coolest thing ever.
I'll believe forever if I don't.
Yeah, I think it's the greatest thing ever. I think
it looks like when you're on camera today and you're just like, what's
this? Yeah, on my wrist.
I'm wearing it on my wrist,
Oh, you asking me about this thing on my wrist? Yeah, but I really like it. Like, it doesn't do. It's literally just a repeater screen for my phone, so it'll tell me when I get WhatsApp messages coming and when I get emails.
So read them on there though, which is quite cool.
You can, and you can reply to it as well, but you have to do speech to reply.
Because even just reading though, like, where are you? Oh, there you are. Like, having to constantly check phone and stuff for those things is quite an interesting thing.
Yeah, and I thought it'd be quite cool as well for because I spend quite a lot of time on my bike, so when I'm cycling, and it's more obvious if I get a message then, and it's easier to read something on my wrist than it is to stop and pull my phone out of either my jersey pocket or my jean pocket. And it's
like audio as well, isn't it? Like audio, you're able to change your music.
Yeah, you can do all your OK Google commands through it and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and you can change your music and you can get directions through it.
the dodgy London, bring out your phone's bad. If you got your watch, it's okay.
Absolutely, yeah, especially in Royal Borough of Greenwich.
Royal Borough of Greenwich.
Yeah, right by the Dateline, yeah.
So I've got one question for Lou. How many clubs are you meant to bring?
That's a good point. Yeah, when you talk about this little golf competition you were doing.
Yeah. How many clubs is I've heard that there's a
14? There's a limit, isn't there? Yeah, finite limit. You can't just bring a golf shop along in the back.
You can't just bring the whole shop.
Yeah.
The limit is precisely one less club than I took yesterday.
Okay, so
what happened? What would happen theoretically if you were to turn up with the one extra club as you did?
The culprit in hand, aka myself, would get disqualified from.
That would be really unfortunate had you been up at 5:30 on a Saturday morning to attend said golf competition.
And then confirm that one was up at 5:30 in the morning on said day of particular golf competition.
And one would be quite peed off with one such act, and one would not like it on a podcast that goes to millions or just
hundreds of thousands, not quite
hundreds
millions.
of thousands. To say this kind of thing. So, So you said you did it today as well, though. You went to the.
No, I didn't do it today. I learnt my lesson.
No, I mean, it's like the competition. So what actually happened? Because did you get a penalty? Because I thought was that the whole weekend gone, or is it only the day?
No. It was a 2-day golf tournament with an all weekend prize, but also separate day ones. This is all irrelevant to me because I had 2 very, very bad days, and thank you so much for bringing it up.
That's all right, man.
Dude, we had to. It's the audience want to know about golf as well. We bring everything. We've got watches, we've got drinking, we've got golf.
Any embarrassing health problems you want to talk about, Lewis, at all, or have we just killed?
No, the rest
okay,
gone.
Since we were going to.
Oh, sorry, Lou, but come on.
The rest is gone, and I can walk normally again, so that's fine.
Oh dear. So when did you realise that you had too many? Did someone pick it out, or did you?
No, I noticed it. I'm a very honourable sportsman. I called the penalty upon myself.
So and then because I suppose that's bad in the sense that you all meant to have 14 because it's even. You could have cheated because you'd have that extra one that may have done the job.
The guy, unless they decided to count the number of clubs in my bag, I could have got away with it. But golf is, Fraser's got various sports and things. All sports, require a certain amount of honesty and integrity. And
I like that, man. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I slept easy last night. That's all I can say. If you've done something wrong,
you've got at 5:30. So, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're underestimating the amount of stress that I felt from the whole situation. So,
mate.
So then I thought, today's another day. I'll go out there and I'll try again this morning, and I had probably an even worse day.
No, you've done good. You've told the truth.
Yeah, well, I've come home thinking, the wind was really strong and it was a tough day out there. I know you guys have been getting sunburnt and having barbecues.
I know, man. It's been horrible.
So
it's been tough.
Perhaps I'm being too dramatic.
It's a hard day.
I had an ice cream as well.
And nothing.
99 was it? Or
to an ice cream.
Are they still 99s or are they £1.45 now or what?
Oh, no, that was £2.20. It was from a little fancy little.
It doesn't have the same ring to it though,
no,
does it?
No, it doesn't, does it? Yeah, a £2.20.
I'll have a £2.20 and an £8.60, please. Actually, I will moan for one thing. I went out for a drink with the wife on Friday night, and for a pint and a lemonade and lime, paid £8.10.
Where did you go?
That sounds horrifically cheap.
I went to the ball field.
Yeah, exactly. For Fraser, where do we go for this?
Yeah. Fraser lives in London. It was happy hour.
Yeah, happy hour in London.
Yeah. So we've gone massively off topic there, but
cheap.
So more to the point, why was someone drinking lemonade on a Saturday night?
Because she was driving better.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I have a joke heard this week.
I like jokes.
Yep, I love this joke. Now, I've ruined it for everyone else, but for this podcast, hopefully it'll work.
Is it a web joke?
No, it's just a normal joke, but I find it really funny and no one else has. And
is it politically correct?
It's politically correct. It's very, very tame. There is no vulgar language. So, what does the letters A-I-R spell? Or what do the letters A-R-I-R spell? Is it air? Okay. So remember air. And what does...
Ed, I'm not going to burst your bubble. I think I know what this is.
I know you know this. What you would know.
It's a Kenny Everett joke.
I have no idea, but please let me just do this to not...
All right. I know what it is.
What do the letters H-A-I-R spell?
Hair.
So we've got those two. And then what does
I know where this is going. Go on.
Spell?
Lair.
Hello. I thought that was genius.
That's a Kenny Everett joke, that.
So I didn't even know that. I just, this guy told me it, and I was like, that's the best joke ever. Everyone else, no one's found it funny.
Ed, I'm so offended by that. How long have you known me?
I know. This is the type. You know, realise I thought this is the type of joke you'd like, and then I think it actually probably knows this, and then when I'm just explaining it now, it kind of makes sense that you know this.
Pure genius.
I thought that was funny. Sorry, audience. Yeah. So moving on.
We've got a bit of news.
2,000 subscribers because of that joke, Ed.
So now we owe subscribers somehow. Yeah. So we've got a bit of big news, haven't we?
Oh yeah.
I'll let. Does anybody? Well, you guys want to?
I'm the least qualified as I'm not actually going to be there.
Well, you may be there in voice though. You know.
Possibly, yeah.
Out. Well, I mean, you dropped the news, Fraser. Go on, man. You dropped it on Twitter.
Okay. We've already. Yeah. So you've maybe already seen it through our Twitter account, but we will be recording a live show at Web in the Woods in September. Is it September? I need to actually get the date. I've got
It's.
So there's a little festival, which is put on by
a day, 2015.
2000. Sorry. Is that when it is?
2015, yeah, Saturday the 12th. We will actually be there. We have been invited to do a live podcast on the Friday night.
Absolutely.
Which is the Friday, so it'll be the 11th on that night. And wow, yeah.
Will it be live to just the people that are there, or are you going to do it on a Google Hangout or something like that?
This is the whole thing.
That's a very good point, yeah.
No, I mean, if the audio, the audio is going to be there, because obviously we're there. If the bandwidth's there to support us doing a live feed, I can't see why not.
Yeah, that'd be a massive show, wouldn't it, being out in the middle of trees and getting no network?
Why is it not scary, to go to there, with just us in front of 50 people? Let's do it to the whole world.
Exactly. I think we might as well.
We're going to brainstorm some ideas. There's nothing being planned properly yet, but we will, think of some things, and I'm sure we're going to talk to Chris about the stuff. Again, Chris, thank you very much for, inviting us.
Absolutely.
And letting us.
It's a privilege to be invited to do it, yeah.
And all I can assure is it's going to be an interesting experience, because that we 3 days in a movie provide. But we hopefully, because our good friend
first gig.
Our first gig, our friend Lew is in the lovely Cyprus in the sun, so he'll be rubbing it in. But we're hoping that if there is also good audio as well for the live thing, we can also try and get Lew in, if not just for a couple of minutes, just so he can have a little chinwag and say hi to the audience, and be lapping it up on the beach.
Yeah, no, that'd be really cool. And
very surreal. If I'm in Cyprus and doing this thing at the same time, that will be very weird.
Awesome. But a lovely website as well, webonthewoods.co.uk.
Yeah. So it'd be also, if anybody out there is interested, it's in Kent, in the UK, obviously. So if anybody's in the area and would like to come camping and have a couple of drinks with us, we're going to be there for the whole weekend, but we're only going to be recording on the Friday night. They've got a great lineup of speakers on the Saturday. So if anyone wants to check it out, go to webinthewoods.co.uk. And I will personally give a beer to everybody who is out in the audience.
So, that was one thing that Fraser came up with last week, which I thought was genius, was the whole idea that everyone gets a beer. So if you come to us on the Friday to actually come to us.
Is that just you trying to ply the audience with alcohol before the show?
Basically, because if we get their expectation, or if we get them drunk, then they're not going to be expecting too much, and they'll just be happy.
A coupon. Coupons are better. We'll give you a coupon, and then you have to come up to us and get the beer from one of us 3. So you actually have to talk to us to get a beer
during the show as well. Yeah, because then we can
get the show.
We can have
So again, these are things we're gonna have a little play with this. We're meeting up a couple of times. We've got some plans, to meet up, let this out, and we're really honoured, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I think you've nailed it there. I think you've nailed the idea there. Get the audience coming up and introduce themselves and chat to people one by one. I think that's a brilliant idea.
That's really cool. And like I say, we're going to be there all weekend as well. So we'll be around the campfire on the Friday and the Saturday night. And it'd be really good if any people that listen to the show would come along. It'd be great to meet you.
And if anyone's
going to get his guitar out and sing some songs,
do a bit of Kumbaya.
And if anyone says the joke, hello, I will openly get you more than just a drink. I'll get you a shot as well. No, we will not be playing the audience with alcohol. Our content speaks for itself.
I will be plying the audience with alcohol.
Oh dear, but it's a privilege. It's an honour and a privilege. So I really am looking forward to it, and it's a shame Lew can't make it. But I think actually, to be honest, it's going to be awesome having Lew live.
Are you guys going for the whole weekend then? Are you going to camp and do all the whole?
Yeah.
Oh yes,
absolutely.
Is Mick coming for the whole thing as well, or is he?
If he doesn't, I will cry.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one likes a man, double N, crying. Jokes. Oh dear.
Not again, anyway.
Not crying again. So this week though, tech stuff. Anyone got anything they want to spill? What people doing this week with tech stuff? You know, I know you've been working on Fraser.js and Laravel 5. Any tips? Anything you've learned in JavaScript or PHP this week? I know, Lew, you've had a couple of things on Twitter. You've said about Laravel 5.
Which bits have I said? I had an Ajax issue.
Yeah, an Ajax. Yeah.
Oh, that was based around using Uploadify and jQuery UI sortable. Just trying to post AJAX requests with Laravel and just getting a 500 server error.
And then you realise the beauty of security and cross-site scripting request forgery tokens.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They are.
But
fun.
at no point did I until it took me 2 days of searching before I finally came across an article with a one-word answer just saying, "Did you post a token?" and I saw all these 20-line responses with code samples and trying to do it this way and blah blah blah, and then I just saw this thing, "Did you send a token?" And I thought, no, I haven't. And then I sent a token, and believe it or not, it worked.
Security.
That's pretty much the main crux of it. But converting my CMS from something less complicated into just an API that I can just call whatever I need wherever I need, rather than someone having to figure out how everything's working from the source. They just want to go and look for the relevant form to the relevant page that you're posting to.
So is that a RESTful API? Is that an API, web service API, or is that an API that they will use through PHP?
It's an API that I've just condensed a load of my functionality into like a CMS helper that's got various form fields and various
composer install.
Yeah, everything's basically you just call a function and then you just pass an array of whatever you need. That's the aim. And then that's nice and easy, and then you can just replicate that wherever you need it. Because I know the aim's not to repeat yourself, but sometimes it's easier to repeat yourself. To try and be too clever and dynamic.
Well, I think the thing is, I found a lot, and I think a lot of people do, is that you get into this idea that dry is the only way, and repeating yourself is a sin. But actually, then realize it's not going to kill anyone that I actually repeat this one bit of code twice, and actually it's going to make the developer's life far easier. Maybe if I'm now repeating this 5 or 6 or 7,000 times, then that's a bit of exaggeration, but that
what you're repeating as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like the idea of like these pages, obviously back in the day with just static HTML, the idea of us having to copy and paste headers all the time and footers, and that's a very kind of condensed focal point on it. But these simple things where I have to copy that and paste that and change it all the time, that stuff is ridiculous to have. You should abstract that out and be able to include it as and when you want, and that's what we did. But then I think we've kind of come to a state where what you do is you kind of have it is fun, like trying to find patterns in code, and you're like, this is quite similar, let me abstract this out into its own thing, and you realize, we're never going to use this again, but why did you abstract this out and make it complicated? Because I thought, and it's the one thing, it's because I thought, or, well, in the future. So because I thought we were going to do this, or in the future, maybe we will do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're sins, because what you've done there is you're saying, okay, so what you're now doing is actually tying us to this code where you don't actually know where it's going to be used or how it's going to be used in the future.
Yeah.
And, unless there's, a roadmap for us using this functionality, you've probably made, your code, again, you've complicated the problem far more than you need to. Keep it simple.
Ed, you've made a CMS before, haven't you?
I have.
You made one for where we used to work. Fraser, have you made one?
I've never made one from scratch. I've made kind of basic CMS functionality, but not a full-fledged CMS.
Like a CMS that would kind of cater for multiple sites, or
no, literally just squeeze something together. So with a couple of tiny MCE editors in there, and that's about it.
Exactly, and you kind of come across this whole wall where you're like, right, am I going to make this thing completely dynamic when I'm going to try and make everything work by default, and then if I have to override something, then
are you going to make it like Squarespace, where they've spent their whole time making it so you can change anything and make it fully fledged that you can customize the whole world in a nice WYSIWYG?
Yeah, it sounds lovely and a really nice idea, but in reality, for a third party to come in and then have to work with that, they've got to figure out your whole train of thought, your whole method of thinking,
it's super hard.
Exactly.
I mean, the problem with CMS has been done so many times and tried to be solved so many times for a reason, because it's hard. The idea that, again, like the reason why there's so many solutions to it is because it's a hard problem. It's one of those like deceptively simple problems where like, oh, CMS, I could do that. But then when you start actually applying like problems, like, like your problems to the solution that you're using, like I found that a lot when the one, say, while I was working in our previous place was I was solving it for a specific site. Well, I wasn't meant to. I was. There was one example, and it was a specific site, and I was very much referencing my solution to this problem, which was the site of how we're going to do it to that site.
Well, version 1 always has to be based on something, doesn't it?
Well, this is it, and then you realise. And then I think I remember, I don't know, it was you or Mickey then had to use my implementation on another site, and then we realised, boom, bang, we have problems because. A lot of the fundamental ideas that I had for that site didn't cross to your site because, of course, they didn't, because they're two different problems. Yeah. You're solving two different problems.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to make this amazing dynamic solution that's going to work for everything, and the dynamic solution just doesn't exist.
And I thought I was doing amazing. I was like, oh, yeah, well, what you can do is you've got this navigation, and then you can apply, output by using these closures because they, each one of the levels you can then style the way. It's like, no, we're not using it that way. We've actually got a navigation in two separate places. Oh, crap.
Yeah, and
okay,
quite often,
can't do that.
The spanner in the works is usually something very, very simple. If you were to just hard code it, it probably wouldn't be an issue at all. But you've written super clever CMS, and then suddenly you realise, oh God, I'm going to have to completely rewrite this component.
And I suppose for me then, I kind of go to the fact of, again, it's solving problems as a problem is. Like, maybe each website needs to have their own solution. That keeps it as simple as it for that site. I know you're going to find I know, again, patterns in these sites, and it's funny how we kind of go round the whole world, don't we? Where we
here's an interesting question:
to extreme.
How would you define simple? What is simple?
Is you know what? That's a really.
Simple I was going to say. Simple for you, user, or?
Oh no! Yeah, this is it. I was going to say there's a couple of things because, of course, you've got simple for me to understand, simple for you to understand, and how many lines of code. Yeah. So. Or actually, simple for a developer to understand, simple for a user to understand, and how many lines of code. Now, some people will equate, your slog, your source lines of code as being how simple it is. Say, oh man, but you can do this in 2 lines. Yeah, of course you can do it in 2 lines if you've anything can be done in 2 lines if you've decided to put every, statement on the same line. And unless you're in like a Python, language like Python, which takes indentation, any C-type language can be just put onto the same line. So it doesn't really matter. You can make the most obscure, weird crap you want to, but it still makes it confusing. I think simple for me is something that I think it's a trade-off between what the user does and what the developer does.
I think from a top level, I think simple starts from the person logging into this thing where they've never seen the code before and thinking, right, where do I need to go to address this issue?
Yeah.
But then do you have to think, what is the skill of the user as well? Because the number of times, like, I know for the company we all work together, we'd put together a CMS site for somebody, hand it over to the user, and it can be a very basic CMS, but the second they get it in their hands, the website explodes. Because
and also they would then contact you for updating it.
Yeah.
Like, I've just built you this CMS, so you
can do this yourself. Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting topic. I really do. Like, and another thing with it is the fact that I don't think the customer, like, when the customer has a problem, this is why WordPress and these types of systems survive, because there's so much material.
Yep.
Hey, Google it then. If you have a problem with WordPress, there's a book on it, or there's a magazine article on it, or there's
a million blog posts.
That's it.
Yeah.
And, with something you've built yourself, you may have solved it and you may have simplified the code for you, but you've actually probably made it harder for your user because they can't go and Google what you've done.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is quite.
You've just encapsulated my whole predicament in one sentence there, and that's now I'm kind of backtracking and trying to make sure that all my code it works towards that, so that whoever looks at it knows what they're looking at.
I mean, it's really interesting. That is a really interesting, kind of how, and it's kind of, again, I haven't, what I'm saying now is really kind of wishy-washy, where I'm not giving anyone a definitive answer what I actually believe, because I don't know. It's
you work in a team, don't you? So you a lot of your work is based around pull requests, and you know that whatever you do, someone else is going to have a look at, and they're going to.
Yeah, I mean, working like where I work now is very different to agency work and client work specifically, because the client for us is two people. They're the people in-house who can come to us if they want to talk about it. So they're far more astute with understanding kind of where we're at, and what we're doing, and then you've got the outside actual tradesman or the customer user, and they again are trying to solve a different problem. We're trying to solve a different problem and provide a solution for them that's different. With the agency work, though, you're kind of always providing a similar solution in the sense that that's again, no, you're not really, though. Again, that's the thing. I think agency work is so deceptively hard, really. I really think it is. It's a very kind of like, oh yeah, I can whip you up a website, and then you realise how many different
variables.
And you realise, and that's why I've kind of gone screaming and running away from it at the moment, because I'm just like, I can't do it. Like, the idea of the client and saying it's like, I don't understand what you want. Like,
then someone will come to you and say, I want a really simple website with a CMS. Okay, there's a really simple website. Oh, but can this page just do this? And it throws the biggest spanner in the works. And now all of a sudden you're back to the drawing board and like, oh shit, well, how do I now incorporate that in a...
The worst thing is when it's people that don't understand web and they say to you, I assume it would be pretty straightforward to just do this.
I had, when I was working in New Zealand for a company, it was a website for a wine warehouse, and they were selling and shipping wines off to all around the world and all this kind of stuff. And they sent me an email saying, we want to change the way the shipping thing works. So we want to charge by weight and country and part of the country and all this. I can't remember exactly what the requirements were, but there was a line on there saying, and it's only going to be cheap, isn't it? Because all you have to do is write a couple of if statements.
So they obviously understood the basics of conditional logic, and then goes, well, what we can do is put this into an email and make them know we know what we're talking about, so they won't screw us over. So annoying. Oh dear.
It feels so patronising sometimes, doesn't it? When people
absolutely,
just don't get what we're up against sometimes.
And epic segue. One of those things we're actually up against, guys, is performance. And performance is a very big thing. Because it turns out Google care about performance, SEO and all that. They do. They care a lot about it. And actually now they're penalising people because of performance on their websites. And one of those makes
sense, I think.
Yeah, obviously if the page loads up quicker, like on, say, on the mobile device now, we're very
happy customer, and the happy customer's going to go back to Google,
That's exactly it. So you're going to go back there and you're going to, they penalise your website because it's not quick enough. Caching is, so there's actually a joke. So there's what was it? There's three. There's not hardest problem. Right, hang on. The hardest problems in computing.
Ed, you should have researched this.
I should have. This is the joke. So
unbelievable.
So there are only two hard things in computer science: cache invalidation and naming things. And off by one errors.
Off by one errors.
Get it? Because I said two things instead of three. Off by one errors. But it's true. I mean, naming things is...
I'm so clever, I understood it. I didn't even see it as a joke.
Naming things is super hard. Trying to... But cache invalidation, when is something not valid anymore? It's so specific to the problem, and I realised this week where I was trying to. So I'm doing performance on a certain page, and there's so many variables where you actually have to understand the logic. So you can easily implement a cache. The idea is, a cache is just say a pre-computed value. So this page, I do a full page cache where it's saying I've now cached that page, and then. Okay, that's cool. I've got that page, and I'll, TTL, time to live is maybe 30 minutes. That's cool, Lou, don't you worry. We're 10 minutes until Lou needs to go to see the Masters, and I don't blame him. And, this kind of thing. So what we do, is you cache it for 10 minutes. That's cool. Okay. And I've actually done that on my pages now. So I was using a file-based cache, a simple PHP script that I ran. And then I realised, actually, that Nginx supports full-page caching. And full page caching is awesome, and your roast is waiting. That's cool, Fraser. Don't you worry. I'm just looking online. I'm seeing the Skype chat going. But anyway, so we've got Nginx and we've got the full page cache, and it's like I was doing this implementation and I was saying, okay, well, I want to now bring the caching logic into my code, and I realized actually that's a separate problem, and you can we had very simple code, switching back to work, where a lot of the code was very much, for the developer. You have the developer code and it's good, and, it's good for the developer. That's great. But you realize actually this is very, unperformant for the actual, response to the user and stuff like certain queries. So we were actually executing a couple of queries twice in the twig files and the view files, when she thought, actually, hang on a minute, it's actually calling this twice. This isn't actually just using it again. And it's little things like that. And also another thing was, so you had this n+1 SQL problem, and Laravel had it a lot in their thing where, say like you're calling, every time you go for a for loop, you call a SQL query to get something. You can normally do like a join or something. And
so then you get a record set, and then you loop through it, and then you need to find something else. And
so you do it every time you have a record set, and you're going through, and each time you have to do a query. MySQL's awful for this with navigation. It doesn't do recursive SQL, and that's where Postgres wins out, because it can do recursive SQL and also window functions, which are awesome. But yeah, Postgres for the win. But anyway, so things like this, and it turns out, okay, actually we were doing this and stuff, and you have to look through the logs and understand it. And there's been a couple of things that I've been learning and looking into, and one of them is Varnish. Varnish cache. There's one called Squid as well. But Varnish cache is super awesome, and it does something called ESI, which is edge side includes. And the idea is that, so a lot of the time you don't just want a full page cache. So say your blog, Lew. So say on your website, you have a lot of static content. Say you have like a blog, but then you also have, say, current meetings or something. Like meetings area, the next meeting's today at 3:00. And it's very quick, like maybe there's a couple of meetings a day, and you want that information to always be fresh. But the content around it, though, say like the blog posts, doesn't change, every hour, maybe every couple of days. So the idea, obviously, is you put a full page cache in, and then you'd say, firstly, very dumb, like in Nginx, or, like you'd implement your own, you say, okay, well, just cache this, this whole page for a minute. And you realize, well, actually, this information doesn't cache. This information doesn't change, until like every couple of hours. And the great thing about like Varnish, and you can do this very well in Symfony, is you can use something called edge side includes. And I'll put that in the blog post, the show notes. And I've got a couple of good blog posts on it. And it allows you to actually inject other requests into your request, so you're able to now deliver to. So the response that Symfony gives you is the content that you actually want to be dynamic. So say in the case of this, you have a navigation bar which doesn't change much, so you can have your header is going to be in a nice ESI. It's going to have its own ESI cache. You're going to have a cache for your that page's CMS post, and then you're going to have like a nice meetings thing, and the meetings thing is always going to change every hour. And each one of these can be separately cached at their own point, and then actually Varnish is able to spit out to the user all of it joined up. But you're able then to take advantage of all the different places in your page that have different times and different domain, different problems to solve. And I think that's really cool. I think it's one of those hard problems, and I really find it interesting, where you find this like joke of the two hardest things in computer science and cache validation, naming things and off by one areas, where you actually realize, caching is really hard, and it's so specific to the problem you're trying to solve. And you can rewrite a query, and you can use like the explain, and you can the query analyzer and trying to understand what's going on there. Those are instant wins. But things like caching, where you're like, actually, crap, this is taking too long, and I can't speed it up just by a simple SQL request. I now need to actually properly go off and do something about it. And, caching it is the only way.
Wow, cool.
And another thing, before we all go off, is... Well, actually, two things, sorry. So, I have something here for you guys to have a look at. So this is something I wrote last week.
Okay.
So I'm colorblind, and it can be a bit annoying. And one of the things I kind of feel is that, naming colors can be hard. So I was looking at a problem and I was just like, okay, well, let me see.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
And, the idea there is, what you can do with this, it's really one cool thing about this page, actually. So it's a workshop, edman.com/color namer. And actually what I was able to do is I've got the source code. I'm actually using that source code and executing it, but also displaying it at the same time.
Yep.
So it's like source code you can actually see. But what actually happens is you can click on this and it will actually calculate the color that it thinks it is, the most likely color it is. Not based on the RBG. RBG is an awful, I've learned now, RBG is an awful color kind of representation to work out what a color similar to our eye is, so how we perceive color is.
Yeah.
It turns out lab is a really good color representation, but the way to get to the RBG to lab is through another color representation called XYZ. And so in this blog post, well, not a blog post, but in this page, and I will do a blog post on it, is just a simple straight up JavaScript that allows you, it converts from RBG to XYZ to lab. If you view the source on the page, you'll notice that what I've done is I've actually taken all the colors that were from these are official colors from Wikipedia, and I've actually converted them from their hex and RBG values to the lab values, so I don't have to calculate them every time.
That's cool.
And then so I then use the CI. There's 3 different algorithms that are used predominantly to find the distance E, I think it is, and it's the CIE 74, CIE 94, and CIE 2000. I use 94 because 74 I find is pretty, or 76 I find is pretty ropey. I find this one easy enough for me to actually code up because 2000's pretty complicated. And this one I was able to find, and it works pretty well. Like I'm able to kind of, go through and actually see these colors and be like, oh yeah, that's, magenta and that's green and stuff. And it still's giving me colors that are pretty, I can't believe that electric green is actually an official color. So what I'm actually going to end up doing is probably rewriting this to use hues as well, which is kind of just saying, yeah, this is green, or this is light green, or this.
I like Spyro Disco Ball.
Spyro Disco, these very, and it's pretty interesting that you can actually just calculate these colors and using these equations that, again, I haven't made up. I just read some papers online and stuff, blog posts that actually displayed this is what you should do. But yeah, really interesting. I really quite like the fact that I can actually just put up a single page in JavaScript and actually show in JavaScript, not only execute the code, but also show the code through the same page.
Pretty cool.
And finally, so last year, when I was looking for a job, etc. and stuff, I went to a couple of interviews, and one of the ones I went to, they provided me with a very interesting puzzle. And it was a really kind of HTTP specific puzzle. And so it's workshop.edman.com/maths-quiz. And what you'll get maths quiz, and it will say solve the equation to reveal the secret. And it's hint speed. Theirs was a little bit different. I've kind of switched it around a bit, so hopefully I won't get sued or anything. But I don't think I got right. I hope they didn't. Anyway, I've stolen it. And the idea is you have to quickly solve an equation and pass back, and you'll get a result. And you'll notice then, I think you've both had a try, haven't you, where you've solved the equation.
Too slow.
I haven't yet. Yeah.
So
I just copy and pasted the whole thing and was told I was too slow. So
again, anyone that wants to try and solve it himself, it's a really fun puzzle. Pause now, because I will reveal. And they paused. So what you now do, if you do ?solution, I've provided you also with a solution, and it's quite cool. So I don't know if you guys have got that up now.
?solution. Yep, got it.
Okay, so this is another cool thing. I was actually doing the same type of joke that I did, well, not joke, but kind of idea in JavaScript, where I actually wrote the PHP in the string format, able to display the actual code, and also then evaluate it as well. So you see, Woot cheese is actually the answer.
Okay.
So what actually happens here? If you look at the response, so if you look at it, you're like, okay, this is interesting. Speed. You'll notice there's a cookie, and the session cookie actually is called "This may help."
Yeah.
And what I've done is, what the idea is, you just have a simple session, and you just store the time that they actually they ran that page initially, and the actual result in a session, and you get it back. But of course, to us, just doing it normally, that unautomated, it takes too long. So what you do here, and so this is maths quiz question mark solution, is you just go and get the headers, you get the response, you get the session cookie. So I'm saying this may help, get the session cookie out using a regular expression out of that. I'm then evaluating the response. I'm actually grabbing whatever the equation is, quickly getting the equation, and then I post back. Well, I don't post back, but sorry, I actually then just go and do a get request again. And then that will give me woot cheese. But because this obviously is happening, the computer's doing it, it's happening all the time because it's less than a second. It's a second afterwards that you have to do it. But I thought it was a really interesting little problem because it's kind of showing that a lot about know certain things about HTTP, sessions, PHP, and how to automate things. And that's really geeky. But I thought it was pretty interesting little thing.
Excellent. Well, we've gone over the hour, so I know Lewis is keen to get off to watch the Masters, and I've got a roast that I can smell that is ready to be shoved into my face. So shall we call it a day there and reconvene in a week?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been great talking to you guys, and
thank you.
Perfect. Well, have a good week, everyone, and we'll speak to you shortly. And thank you very much for listening, and everyone get your tickets for Web in the Woods, and there's a free bit for you.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.